I am calling to order the meeting of the Norton Charter Commission. It is 7:06 p.m. on one person in the waiting room. Fox student? True, that's a myth.
Is that Janie?
She didn't. I told her to text me when she was.
Because Foxborough? I'm wondering if it's Janie, because she teaches in Foxborough.
Alright, let's let her in. Let's see if it's her. If not, we'll kill her. I don't see where they went. They're gone. Alright, proceeding. Calling to order, sorry. Meeting of the Norton Charter Commission today is Monday, May 4th. We have in attendance all members at the present time with the exception of Kevin Schleicher Jr. Oh, there's Janie. Denise Luciano, who is running late, and all other members are present. At some point, Carrie may need to step out. Looks like Janie is here. And if nobody has any issues, we'll go ahead and get started. Let's start with the acceptance of the prior minutes, which I meant to pull up and I did not. So, up for review of the minutes of the meeting of April 20th, 2020. I don't have any, if anybody doesn't have any questions, comments, or issues, I will go ahead and accept a motion to accept the minutes of April 20th.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Oh, I gotta do roll call, sorry. Sandy, you in favor?
Yes.
David Wren?
Yes.
Dave Heaney?
Yep.
Keith Silver?
Yes.
Janie Goodwin?
Yes.
Thank you. Carrie Snyder?
Yes.
I am also in favor. They are passed unanimously by the 7 folks present. Okay, admin items. Something I forgot the last time we met was we had rescheduled our second May meeting to the 19th instead of the 18th because town meeting was supposed to be on May 18th. Since we no longer have that conflict, are people in preference of moving that meeting back to the 18th, or would you prefer to keep it on the 19th? Those in favor of moving it to the 18th, raise your hands. I can see Keith. David Wren, are you listening?
I am. I have to call my calendar up. I didn't have it open.
Oh.
Honestly, I'm indifferent. I can do either or. 18th or the 19th is fine with me.
Yeah, I just assume keep it on a Monday if possible.
That's fine with me.
Okay. David Wren?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
All right, so we're going to move I actually put it on the agenda as the next meeting on the 18th. So we'll go ahead and keep that, or so the 18th is our next meeting date, same time. Next, the letter to the Attorney General's office, and the other department whose acronym I keep forgetting, Department of Housing and Community Development. Got it. So I didn't want to bother Carrie. I knew she was going through a few things, so I did not make you aware that we got responses from both the Attorney General's office and the Department of Housing and Community Development. Not great resolution. The Attorney General's office didn't pick up on the fact that town council was the reason that we were experiencing potentially some delays, and referred us to our town council, and then copied town council in the letter back to me. So, trying to kind of keep things behind the scenes did not necessarily work out so well in my favor. At that point, I had not yet heard, so they said maybe the Department of Housing and Community Development can provide some relief to you, but they basically stated there was nothing that they could do. Department of Housing and Community Development were even less helpful and said, this is a local issue and you should talk to your board of selectmen about getting an extension to this. So they're clearly unfamiliar with the entire process. The good news is Senator Feeney has continued to stay involved, and Michael Toole is actually helping with that, and had followed up with him to make sure that, because I had forwarded the responses that I had gotten from both the Attorney General's office and the DHCD, and asked him to follow up, and he said he had just recently. Senator Feeney felt that we might be able to get some relief. Even when I talked to him the first time, he was uncertain of us getting any sort of satisfactory response by doing the letter, but he felt it was the first best effort, and he would step in if that did not work. So he came back and said we might be able to get some relief from colleagues in the Senate who are working on municipal law related specifically to COVID-19. And hang on, let me let Denise in. Okay. So he had just come back and said, if you don't mind, I'm going to tie in our two congressmen just so that they are aware of what's going on. We may need to do a quick conference call with them. But it's easier if we make them aware of what we're trying to attempt up front in the event somebody from the municipal law area goes and starts talking to them and they don't know what we're talking about or they're talking about. So hopefully we will have assistance from all of our legislators, and we'll be able to get some relief by way of special act that would be written to extend the law specifically. Yes, Jane.
What did town council say in response? Did she have any feedback at all?
No. So I was on the selectmen's meeting last Thursday in which she was in attendance. And as soon as she saw me, her video went down. And the next thing I know, I was getting a text. And the text I will read to you now says, give me a second, I just have to find it. So I had been, continuing to follow up with her. I still do not have a draft charter or any part of it to share with you folks. I'm sorry. But her text on Thursday evening says, so sorry to have been difficult to reach and somewhat overwhelmed with work. Am on it. We'll try to get things over the next couple of days. Nice to see you. That was Thursday night at 6:30. I haven't seen anything since. She has not addressed the letter back from the Attorney General's office. Unclear if she's actually seen it. So that's where we stand. But we have legislators at least working on our behalf, trying to get us some help and relief there. And I will keep you updated as to where that stands. But at this point, it looks like we've done everything we've been asked to do and that we have at our disposal. And, they may come down to working with our town council to get us that extension. And knock on wood, we'll have some resolution there. So that's where that stands. I don't think we have anything from anybody from the public. I'm just looking down the list. Denise, you're there, right?
I'm here. Yep.
Okay, just checking. Nobody's from the public. I'm going to close the public comment section of the agenda. And I've pretty much just given you the update on the first draft of the charter. We do have quite a bit to discuss with regards to citizen participation options. Having gone through all of the various options that are out there and the particulars related to each, I could see this going over a couple of meetings, which is good, I guess. It buys us a little bit, buys Lauren a little bit more time. But I'm not hitting the panic button just yet, considering we haven't made all of the decisions that we need to make at this point. So I'm still comfortable where we are and optimistic that we'll be ready to move forward, given our original time frame. So, and if not, hopefully we'll have an extension available to us if needed. So, with that being said, let's talk about the citizen participation measure options. And if nobody minds, I'm actually going to share my screen, which I think everybody might find helpful, because what I did, it was easier for me. I had started keeping track of them manually just on a pad of paper, and transferred them into an Excel spreadsheet, and that expanded into several Excel spreadsheets. But I compared 6 town council form of government charters for their participation measures, and did a compare and contrast of what they had available, the provisions, limitations, restrictions related to each measure. So if you hang on, I'm going to open up my screen. Let's see. I think this one's it. Okay. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
All right. Bear with me. In order to maximize my screen, I've got you all off to the side, so I can't see you all at once at this point. So if you are raising your hand and I don't call on you, just unmute yourself and speak up, and I'll try and make sure I get to you. All right, so starting with the towns that I did the review and comparison of were Amherst, Barnstable, Franklin, North Attleboro, Randolph, and Watertown. 3 of which I think we have read: North Attleboro, Watertown, and Amherst. I had Bridgewater in here for a while and then forgot what a horrible document it was and trashed it, because even in the table of contents it was missing references to specific areas of the citizen participation measures, and Sandy reminded me that even their town manager said that it's not a great document. So I tossed it and put in, I forget which one in its place, if it was Franklin or Randolph. So there are, in addition to kind of the 4 that we talked about last week, there were a few others out there available as well that a couple of towns are making use of. The 3 that are in green are the ones that are predominantly used across almost every charter that I read for town council form of government. The first one on the list is open meeting, which initially I was thinking was pre-petition group, and it's technically not. Open meeting has to do with, it's basically at the discretion of town council. We can talk a little bit more about it. Only a couple of towns use it. We can make a determination whether we think it's a fit for us or not. But the ones most frequently used are the group pre-petition, which, if it's done as a group, is mandated by law that the town council has to hold a public hearing within a minimum of 30 3 months of receiving the petition. There is also a version of an individual petition, which is discretionary by the town council as to whether they want to act on it. It can be a single person or just a few people that put forth a petition that want to have something reviewed. The two that I think we're going to probably focus on tonight are the citizen initiative, measure, and then the referendum measure. These are the ones that have quite a few bells and whistles that we probably want to make available within our charter. The citizen initiative is basically a demand by a group of voters to have a measure be passed, and the referendum is a demand of a recently passed measure to be reconsidered, recalled, rescinded, either in part or in the whole. So why don't we jump over to free petition group, and let's see if we can get this all on one screen and still see everybody. Can everybody see that screen fully? I'm going to take that as a yes.
I was not in my head, but I can see it.
Me too.
Okay. So as I explained, free petition, when it pertains to a group petition, Mass state law requires that a public hearing be held and that town council hold some form of public hearing within a certain number of days. The thing that varies most amongst the towns that I reviewed were just simply the number of signatures required to get a measure heard through a public hearing. So a couple of other things that are different too is, and we'll probably want to talk about this a little bit, in some charters, the citizen participation measures not only are applicable to measures passed by town council, but also by the school committee. So we probably want to have a discussion as to whether we want to include the school committee's measures within here, and maybe even have a discussion as to whether we want to reach out to the school committee and see if we want to get their input. Sandy, did you have any opinion on this? Did you happen to notice that some of them did apply to town council and some applied to town and school, and in some cases library, depending on which one?
Yeah, I didn't see the library ones, but I noticed some did include the school and some didn't. Yeah, I noticed that some of them definitely include the school committee.
Yeah. Do we feel, sorry, Denise, yes?
My apologies, I forgot about the raise your hand thing. But are there guardrails around what kinds of things can be petitioned for from the school committee? Because there are some things that we're not allowed to interfere with, correct?
Yes, there are, and I'll get to that. So I do have a tab here. So there are measures that are specifically excluded from initiative, and oh God, I'm having a tough day. Initiative measures and referendum measures, specifically. And I've got those mapped out here by town and which town excludes which measures. They seem to be fairly common across the board. But with respect to a free petition, because it is the petitioner who is making the demand to have a measure heard or passed, they are essentially making up whatever it is they want to have addressed. And in most cases, this is not something that would go to town council. It's assumed that the public hearing would be held, the town council would, take in all of the public comment, and then meet further on its own and make a determination as to whether they want to act on the request for a measure, and then they would draft a measure that would be applicable by law, as opposed to within an initiative where a group of people is putting forth a measure that they specifically want passed. That has to go to town council, and it has to be something that not only the group has control over, so it would be a measure that on which they would act normally, but it also has to be allowed meaning not excluded within the measures, and it has to be drafted properly or legally. So with respect to free petition, it's more of a, it is a demand to be heard, but it is not a specific demand to have a measure passed, if that's helpful.
Yeah, it seems like more of, I have a concern and I'm a citizen of this town.
Yes.
So I want a hearing on it.
Yes. And so in the case of something that they want town council to listen to, it would go to the town council president or the clerk of the town council, who would bring it to town council. If it was pertaining to the school committee, it would either go to the chair of the school committee or the superintendent for action by them specifically. So depending upon who the initiative or the petition was addressed to, they would be the ones having the public hearing and taking the action, if that makes sense. So I think what we need to decide within here specifically is how many people do we want to require to have on a petition to get action, and do we want to allow them to be able to address the school committee as well as town council measures. Does anybody have any strong feelings? So we
I
can
wonder
see.
if it would be good to just reach out to the school committee to see, just to see what their thoughts are in terms of like how other school committees deal with these things, and what the experience has been.
Okay.
But I don't have a strong feeling either way. Simply because I'm not familiar with the hearings. I haven't ever attended one or.
Yeah. I'm going to jump over to really quickly just the initiative page. Within the charters, 3 of them specifically only address town council measures, and 3 of them address town council and school committee simultaneously within the initiative and the referendum.
Yeah, those I'd be a little more cautious about doing school committee.
Yes. Well, also within referendum.
That's what I mean. Initiative and referendum, that would make me a little more wary. But for a free petition where you're just calling for a hearing to talk about something.
Yeah. The other thing I don't know is whether the school committee has its own set of procedures that already allow for this, and that would be useful to know.
Yes.
So Laura, my thought on this again is it goes back to what is their need, right? We don't have this right now, so
Right.
I'm not sure why we would, I didn't hear anything from the public about this being a need. It seems to me that anytime people want to be heard by school committee, they can show up to a meeting, they can, make their voices heard. I get the town council obviously makes sense because that's a new feature of the charter, but the school committee isn't really changing, so I'm not sure why we would change how we interact with them.
That is true, because they would be voting on their own budget. The town doesn't vote on the school budget, right? They vote on the budget as a whole, of which the school committee's budget is a part of, correct?
Right.
Or is it excluded from the town budget?
No, they vote it as a whole.
Okay. Of which school committee is a part of, but nobody has a ability. And other than that, school committee would be, well, I'm trying to think if they needed a bylaw change, they would bring it to town council. I'm just thinking that they wasn't, available to them presently because anything related to the school committee other than their budget would have been brought up to a vote by that required a legislative vote would have been brought to open town meeting.
I think Denise is, are you trying to raise your hand, Denise? Oh, I thought you were. Yeah, I don't see anything, I don't see the role changing at all or being impacted at all by the town council. So I don't know why we would include them in this piece of it.
Okay.
Can I jump in for a second?
Absolutely. Is that Janie?
Yeah, it is. Sorry, I know you can't see me.
No, you just popped up in the top, so now I can. It looks like as you talk, you've come to the top of my list, but my list is smaller.
Oh, okay. So a couple points. I know that this may not have been an issue in terms of things that we saw in terms of feedback and, you know, why change something that doesn't need to be changed. But we did see a lot of feedback in regards to the school committee and in regards to school and communication and just the whole overall effort of working together as a community. So that might be an added benefit, but to add to Carrie's point, that is definitely, I feel like even if we were to go that way, it is definitely something I'd like to hear from the school committee on and get their feedback on it as well before we, you know, made that decision. But I see, you know, both positives and negatives there.
Okay. Anybody else have a thought on this?
Well, this is Keith. The school committee, they're just going to vote on school committee problems, right? They won't be voting on anything else with the councilman, right?
No. No, but if somebody wanted to force a public hearing by the school committee, this is a way of going about it.
Right.
And it's forcing the public hearing, it's not necessarily forcing the school committee to take action on the results of that public hearing. It just allows them to be heard on a particular subject. Yes, Jane.
Can I jump in again for a second?
Please.
And again, this is my personal opinion, and I'm trying not to make any decisions based on that. But like in Norton, I feel like we have a really good school committee. I feel like we have a very responsive school committee, and I couldn't see them refusing to hear anybody coming to speak to their committee and for any reason. Like I couldn't see that happening within our current school district. But I would try not to make a decision based on that and based on a current committee and a current administration that we have in town. So again, I think it'd be, you know, a wise idea to even entertain it and see what the school committee thought about something like that.
Okay. I'll reach out to them specifically. So let's table that for now. And let's just talk about what we feel is a appropriate number of signatures. In some towns, it is a formal petition. Those voter signatures have to be certified. In some cases, it is just a letter with signatures and names and addresses on it. So let's talk about, and they seem to range from as few as 25 in North Attleboro, and everybody else is at 150. And they have to be voters. So what do we feel is an appropriate number here for Norton?
So I did just a quick lookup of populations, and these towns are all bigger than ours, roughly speaking. And this isn't voters, this is total population. But roughly speaking, we're 20,000-ish. Amherst is 38, Barnstable is 44, North Attleboro is 29, and Randolph is 32.
Yes.
If you go, you have it as,
I have the actual number of voters by, let me see if I can get them all on one page.
So, yeah. Sorry, I'm not sure the exact numbers are important, at least for where I was going with this, but just given that they're bigger than us, it feels like our number should be smaller. The North Attleboro number feels way too small.
Yes.
So I would throw out something in the range of about 100, which is still, like, it feels like there should be effort involved. Right, and I know a lot of people here went through a lot of effort to gain a lot of signatures to just to get this this whole commission going. but it should be something that you have to put a little bit of work into. So 100, given the population differences, feels roughly right to me.
Anybody else feel differently or similarly?
That was along the lines that I was thinking as well. And just to get to the particular format, I don't think, for something like this, I don't think there should be a strict prescribed form. I like the idea, because you're just calling for a hearing, it'd be as easy for them to write up as possible, so they don't have to get a lawyer to do it.
Yep. All right.
I agree.
Anybody feel differently about 100 signatures in no particular form?
Sounds good.
Okay, should we vote on it? Oh, one of the other things, in 2 of the towns, with regards to this, they limited, you could only bring up a particular subject once every 12 months, rolling 12-month period. Did not know if this is something we wanted to consider adopting in order to, if we had somebody who was disgruntled and wanted to keep kind of bringing it up again. Is 12 months too long? Is it too short? Should we not have it at all?
I like that.
I was going to say, it feels like the kind of thing that, how do you judge if it's the same topic or if it's different enough, or what? It just feels like it gets sticky, right? Somebody brings up that they want ice cream, but then the next time they bring up that they want vanilla ice cream next time, and then they bring up that they want chocolate ice cream, and obviously it's a silly example, right? But I think there can be a lot of different versions of that, and it just gets more difficult than it's worth having in there in the limitations.
Okay. We could put something in there, materially similar subject. To kind of get away from the.
Yeah.
Is that a yes? No. I'm seeing a shrug.
Yeah. I guess I just, it reads like the kind of thing where they had a problem, so they put a rule in, right?
Yeah.
They had one person who was annoying them, so they made a rule to deal with it. And going back to Sandy's commentary earlier of like, everything that we do here should be solving a problem. And I just don't see this as a problem that we've really had in whatever version of the problem we would have had in the current form of government.
Okay. Fair enough.
But
all right.
Others may disagree.
Laura, this is Denise. I kind of like the limitation of once every 12 months because the threshold of 100 is not really all that hard to get. And so my concern is that we're going to keep, if there's a hot topic that there's, heated debate on both sides of the issue, it's going to keep flip-flopping every time there's a meeting. And there's costs associated with these public meetings, right?
Yep. Yeah, a couple of these. So I've got the basic highlights of what is to take place, but in almost all of these, it makes reference to the cost of the public hearing will be borne by the taxpayers.
And maybe I just need. Sorry, Denise. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say borne by the taxpayers through the town budget.
It doesn't say.
They've taken it from their pockets and they're all sharing it.
Yeah, it's literally silent on the matter, which that was a question that I had too. Any public hearing that's held by a town council is, the cost of it is going to be borne by, we're not going to be getting any state funding for that, so it's going to be coming from our coffers. So I view that as, yes, that's how it's being paid for.
Yeah.
But I think it was there to demonstrate, please don't be frivolous with it. This is costing you money.
And maybe this is a basic question, and apologies if I missed it, but I guess I was reading public hearing to be they would hear the public at one of their meetings.
No, it's a
That
formal.
doesn't sound like what we're talking about here.
It is a
what does a
statement.
public hearing actually look like?
So it is, there has to be specific notification in whatever form a public hearing has to be notified. If it's not specified within the charter, then by law. So there is, right now for us, there's notification to the Sun Chronicle. It has to be within a certain number of days. It has to be posted on the website, that sort of thing. But it is a formal public hearing. It's similar to the public hearing we had to hold after we got elected. It is not just a, we'll get together and talk about it.
Okay.
Laura, where is that defined? I mean, right now we have public hearings all the time for things that are not necessarily go to that formal process. We have an annual budget hearing by the school committee. We have, when anytime there's a Prop 2.5 over, there's been public hearings for that. So
I think it's set by law.
But where is it defined in the charter that that's what this means? Because we've used that term public hearing for other things.
I think anything that's identified as a public hearing is the stipulations of the formal notification, and not only the notification, but the timeline in advance of the notification. Bear with me one second. I'm just looking at the Collins Center thing to see if it had any guidance on there.
I mean, it seems like you're comparing it to like a planning board public hearing where they have to notify abutters and all that, but that doesn't seem to apply in this scenario. So I'm not sure that what the requirements would be for.
Yeah, but I think it's similar to, FinCom is meeting on, a particular article. It other than, planning board by definition and the tasks that they're working on are going to be pertaining to zoning, and therefore going to have abutters that need to be notified.
Right, so what is it, I mean, again, I think every public hearing is defined, like our charter commission, our public hearing was defined by the state, and that's very different than a public hearing by the planning board. Like every type of public hearing seems to be well defined.
Are they within? I know they're not all within our charter. I'm not sure if they're within our bylaws, or if my understanding was this public hearing was a state-defined concept.
Right, but FinCom doesn't post in the Sun Chronicle, do they, when they have their public hearings?
But are they public hearings, or are they just meetings open to the public?
Well,
No,
they have their budget every year that they have to.
I think they notify Sun Chronicle.
Okay, I mean, but even if it's, again, I kind of like to go to Lauren to see where that's defined, and how a general public hearing is defined, because I know for every group it seems to be different. So, and I don't know that even if we had to publish in a Sun Chronicle, no abutters have to be notified. I don't think it's as big a production as certainly as something for planning board, or a big cost like it would be for something for planning board. So if it's just a matter of a Sun Chronicle posting, that doesn't seem like a huge.
So
No.
I think it depends on the topic, right? So think about something that we've had that has drawn the biggest crowds that we've gotten at town meetings before, right? If there was something like that kept resurfacing and kept drawing those big crowds, and we kept having to get a big location and cameras, and like, it's nice to think that they're all going to be small little, hearings, and not a lot of people are going to attend, but they could be hot topics. We don't know what's going to come up in these.
So the purpose of a free petition, though, is to try to get some action of something that you want, the town council to take action on. If
Right.
you have a hearing and they don't take action, and they hear you and they still say, we don't care what you think, would you go back to them again and say, I want another hearing on this? Or would you then step it up and then, take it to the next level and do, an initiative petition at that point? I just can't imagine people continually saying, I want another public hearing on the same topic when they're not getting any response from town council. It doesn't seem to make any sense from a from a personal perspective, if they have that issue.
Well, I could see them doing it just to be a nuisance.
But if it's not accomplishing anything, why would you not go to the initiative petition and try to force it?
And this whole discussion is about the issue of redoing the same thing within a 12-month period.
Yeah.
If somebody really is just being obnoxious and just wants to be a nuisance, they'll find a new thing to put in something about, right? So I don't think it's about limiting the ability to put in the same item every 12 months is going to stop someone from being a nuisance, if that's the concern.
Yeah, I'm thinking let's think about things, and I realize that it's more of a planning or a ZBA issue because of the thing, but things like the Bay Road solar farm and how annoyed people were and how unhappy they were with the resolution they got, I could see somebody else basically going up and asking for the same thing all over again.
So,
But if they're asking for a hearing, to Sandy's point, they're not going to, if they come away dissatisfied the first time and then ask for another hearing on the same thing, they're very likely to come away dissatisfied the second time. They would have, theoretically, they would avail themselves of a different option to increase their likelihood of getting a satisfactory solution.
Yes. But also we have to, let's, for example, look at Facebook and how many people choose to open the same argument on Facebook, getting no resolution.
But that's different than going out and collecting 100 signatures to get a hearing set up, right? That's shouting into the void.
Yeah. Okay.
and I think, if I can jump in here too, I think, I guess I'm a little confused too, or I don't know if you are or it's just me, but the process that Sandy was just talking about is what I was thinking the free petition was, kind of like the start of that initiative process. And I was thinking as I was going through these things that the hearing was a council meeting in which, they announce ahead of time, okay, we're going to be talking about the issue on this petition here. And that being a public, I guess I wasn't thinking of it in terms of having a whole separate meeting for just the free petition. And then, to the point that Dave and Sandy were both talking about, like if there nothing comes about that, I was thinking from the free petition, from the council, my thought process was they would move to that second step. So I guess I was seeing the free petition as part of like a pre-initiative process.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's what it's intended to be. My view of the limitation that's in Amherst and Barnstable is basically to force the issue into the next step, into the initiative measure, so that they do have some additional course of action and do not rely on the easier one again, hoping for a different resolution.
Well, in that case, I guess I'd be okay every 12 months, right? Because if there is no resolution, or if not to their satisfaction, I don't know what someone would get a second time by doing a petition at another meeting.
Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I think I was originally thinking that it needed to be a special meeting, but now it doesn't seem like it. It seems like you just need to you need to take special steps to notify the petitioners that you're going to hear their petition. But beyond that, I think looks like it could happen at a regular hearing.
What do you mean a regular hearing? It's not going to happen at a town council meeting. It has to be a hearing. It has to be a special meeting.
Oh, Laura, you can have a public hearing at planning board meetings. They do it all the time.
No, fine. No, this is the part.
Right, planning board.
I guess I think of these meetings as public hearings, because the public can come and talk about things. It's just got a specific agenda.
Okay.
A planning board public hearing isn't necessarily just about that issue. It's part of their regular meeting.
Oh, within their, yeah, you're right.
And then sometimes they have a different location if they're going to have a bigger crowd, but they can do other business during that meeting. It's not really, it doesn't have to be a separate meeting.
Yeah, most of the clauses, and they're not represented in here, most of the charters stated something to the effect of multiple public hearings from pre-petition can be held within the same meeting. And you're right, there's probably no reason why it can't be held within a specific meeting of town council within that agenda. All right, so now I've lost place. So do we want a limitation or no? I know there was a couple of people leaning towards it. I had been, but I
don't think we need it.
Again, I see both sides of a lot of situations, including this one.
Feels like an
Denise,
awfully specific thing to put into a charter.
Yeah. Denise, are you okay letting that go?
Denise, you're on mute.
Can't see her. Oh,
Sorry, yes, I'm fine letting it go. I mean, I like limitation, but it's not a big deal.
Okay. I'm kind of the same opinion. Does anybody else feel strongly about keeping the limitation?
No, it's all right.
Okay. All right. So we are going to, I will take a motion to accept within our charter a citizen participation measure allowing free petition by a group brought forth by 100 voters on no particular format with no limitation as to how many times the subject can be brought up.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, everybody in favor. Dave Heaney?
Yes.
Keith?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Denise?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Janie?
Yes.
David Wren?
Yes.
I am also in favor. It is passed unanimously by a vote of 7 in attendance. Okay. That was an easy one. All right, let's move on to initiatives. So an initiative is a little bit stronger than a free petition. It is basically demanding that a specific measure be passed. So in general, with a few exceptions, the Franklin did not have any reference in there to it having to go to the town attorney to deem its whether it's allowed. But this one gets a little bit complicated. So on the left, I've got the towns, I've got the number of registered voters, I've got specifically what, we also need to vote on what we want to call it, which is sort of a pain in the neck because there is no standard. Every town seems to do it a little bit differently, which is a bit of a pain. I like things a little bit more orderly than that. So we're going to talk about what we want to call it, whether we want the initiative measures. We'll probably table this again with regards to whether it's going to include school committee measures. After we do the initiative and the referendum pieces, we'll go through which measures are excluded from initiative or referendum. But then we will need to talk about either the number or the percentage of signatures and how long people have to collect them. Then we have to talk about what action needs to be taken by the town council or the school committee, and whether or not we want to have a requirement if it goes to vote a specific level of voter participation in order to pass. After that, we need to talk about whether or not we want to have a supplemental provision, which is basically I don't want to call it a do-over. So basically it's a additional measure allowed to citizens in the event that they did not get a positive resolution to their first attempt, they can go back and get additional signatures and essentially force it to a vote. So every town does it a little bit differently. So in the case of Amherst, so the initial petition is just 250 signatures. Once the town attorney deems it acceptable or lawful, town council has the option of doing nothing, and it's deemed passed on the 61st day. They can choose to pass it without any change to the measure drafted. They can pass them a different measure in lieu of the one that was in the initiative, and for that purpose, it is deemed rejected, meaning then they have supplemental provisions available to them if allowed by the charter, or they can choose to reject it outright. Couple of variations on that, so that seems to be the most standard one. Franklin has a very different way of doing it, where if it's brought forward, it just goes to a special election, special initiative election, and that has to be held within 35 days after the certification of all of the signatures. Barnstable does something a little bit differently as well. If the attorney deems it lawful, they can pass it without change, and if they choose not to do that, then they put it to a town vote. Otherwise, there is kind of the same thing that I had discussed with regards to Amherst. They can pass it with changes, or reject it outright. The other thing that's a little bit different is if they choose to do nothing, depending upon the town, different things happen. In Amherst, if they do nothing, the initiative petition is deemed passed. In North Attleboro, if town council does nothing, it is rejected. And in Randolph and Watertown, if town council does nothing within the prescribed time frame, they can conduct no other business until the initiative is undertaken. So there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat here. And I'm not even sure about how to go about jumping in. We don't have present option available to be able to look at to see what we're currently doing. But we can, do it with as few as 250 signatures, and then make it harder if they do not achieve the resolution that they want, meaning it's not passed. We can choose to require them to get all of the signatures up front and put it up for a town council vote, or let the town council put it out for a vote by the town. Or we could just simply have it go to a initiative election straightforward.
Laura, am I reading this right, where all the way in that right-hand column, if eventually it does get to a town-wide vote, is that saying that only 20%? Oh, 20%. Sorry, I was reading it wrong. I figured it out.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So if it goes to a supplemental provision, meaning they're forcing town council to take it to a town vote, they have to get the additional signatures in order to do so. And then within that, so once it goes to a vote, in order for that to get passed, it has to achieve a certain level of participation by the voting public.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure. Does anybody have any thoughts or ideas on what they feel might be appropriate for the town of Norton and where they'd like to start?
I guess as an initial matter, I don't like the idea of letting town council just let it be rejected with no action. I feel like that makes it not much more than a free petition. If they don't have to do anything. So I do think there should be some consequences if they don't take action. So either you can't do any other business if you don't take action within a certain amount of time, or it's deemed passed if you don't do anything with it within a certain period of time.
I tend to be of the same opinion. I think it's rude that people would go through this amount of work and effort and have them do nothing. I would be very annoyed. So, yes.
I do kind of like the Randolph option of you can't do anything else until you do something about that. Doesn't mean you have to pass it, obviously, right?
Yep.
But you gotta do something with it.
Yes, Randolph and I think Watertown have the same, and you probably can't see it because I can't get everything to fit on the same screen.
Or if you click in the toolbar at the top, that little, all the way to the right, the little arrow that is pointed up.
Yeah.
So,
I can get rid of that.
There
Nice.
you go.
All right.
My
We got some
value
more
add for the
space.
night.
Thank you. We got a little more space. All right, so we can see everybody on the same screen. It's probably a little tinier than everybody would like. Nope, that didn't work. Okay. So yes, Randolph and Watertown both have that provision where if they take no action within the time prescribed by the charter, then they cannot conduct any business on anything from their own agenda until that's done. And then with Amherst, if they do nothing, it's just automatically passed. So let's start from there. Do we want it just deemed passed if they do nothing, or do we want to stop them from doing any further business?
My preference would be to avoid any kind of automatic action either way.
Okay. Anybody else have a strong feeling on it?
So I feel like I guess it doesn't really matter, except that I would not like 61 days. I would like a 30 days. Like they have 30 days to just decide it or discuss it, and then if that doesn't happen, I don't really mind which way that it gets passed or rejected. But then at least I can move on, and I can then get the rest of my signatures to force it to a vote.
Yes. Well, if we're going to allow for that, I'm trying to see if there's anybody who doesn't. So yeah, Barnstable and Franklin don't have they've got a high threshold up front, and well, not only a high threshold, but a really short period of time. But they automatically go. So Franklin automatically goes to an election, and Barnstable, they can vote on it or it goes to an election. Or
Yes,
a town vote.
Like we're giving them a chance, right? We're giving the town council a chance to take action on this. I don't want to give them too long. And then at that point, I guess I don't see the point of getting 10% just to do that, though.
Right.
I'm almost like Amherst with its, 250, and then it goes to them, but then not the 61 days. So
Okay.
And then you have to get the rest of your signatures to force it to a vote.
Okay, so I'm sorry, were you okay? I know you said you wanted to make it a shorter period of time, but are you okay with it being deemed passed if nothing happens? Or do you want to force them to take some action?
To me, it doesn't matter. I mean, pass or fail, after 30 days, if I haven't gotten my resolution as a petitioner, then I know I can move on to the next stage.
Go ahead, Keith. Sorry.
30 to 35 days should be plenty of time, and if they don't act on it, I think it should automatically pass.
Well, Laura, this is Denise. Just for clarity purposes, you're talking about the clock for the days starts after it's been reviewed by town attorney, correct?
If you look at the column H, every town does it a little bit differently. So in some cases, it's the point from the approval by town attorney, and in some cases, it's the number of days that the signatures have been certified.
Because I think the clock should start after those mechanisms have been completed.
Yes, I agree.
And I definitely think town attorney should be looking at it for legality, constitutionality.
Just not to waste our time, yeah. Okay, so do we want to make it 30 days from approval by town attorney?
That sounds good.
Okay. All right. It seems like we were looking at Amherst as with the exception of the number of days, meaning Amherst, it would be if nothing happens, it is passed on the 31st day. Or they can pass it without changing it, pass a measure in lieu of what was presented, or reject it outright.
So, Sandy, I hear you on the wanting to have a resolution part of that, but I guess I just struggle with whether it's 250 or 10% or whatever. If it auto passes, and yes, the town council could do something about it by taking action, but if we have a provision in there where it auto passes in any way, we're saying 10%, we're saying there's an option that 10% of the town can sign a slip and something just passes with no further action being taken on it. That just doesn't feel right.
I'm okay with that, but 250 seems like a very low bar for something to automatically happen.
Right.
With no action.
I don't think we're saying that what's automatically going to happen. I think what we're doing is pushing town council to take a vote on it.
Right.
And that's the motivation, right?
That's why I said that.
Right, but 30 days, you're talking maybe 2 meetings, right? For them to do something with it. And what if something happens, what if it's over the summer and people are on vacation, they can't get a quorum? Or I'm just thinking of reasons that are not abusive, that they couldn't take action on it. So you're only giving them they could call special meetings, I'm sure, but in terms of the regular schedule, we're talking 2 meetings to get it done.
So is it compromise than what Watertown has?
I don't hate Watertown. Watertown and Randolph have the same provision. I don't hate it.
No, I think it still gives them the consequence that they can't do what they want to do until they take action.
Yeah. I agree. I don't seem to like it. I definitely don't want it rejected. And I think just having it passed without having to achieve some, I don't want it to get passed on a technicality, I guess, is where I'm getting at.
Or on the cop out, right? If it's something that people just don't want to take a vote for, but want it to be like they should have to take the vote. Yeah, I kind of want to know where they stand. Like, I could see them saying, oh, we just won't bother with it. We won't waste the time on it because we want to pass it, and it just getting done. But then that should be a quick vote.
Yes, exactly. I think the reverse is more likely where, time runs out and they're caught in a technicality and it gets passed and it was not intended to be. So I like Randolph and Watertown's options, which I think are the same. Yeah. David?
My bad?
You're there.
Okay. I guess my only thought was, if they take no action, they're not really taking a position on it. And then it goes to a vote anyway, to the town. So I guess I can see where the board doesn't know, perhaps doesn't have a position on it, or doesn't want to take a position on it, one way or the other, and basically feels that the town should vote on it. So maybe they don't want to take a position, either approving it or rejecting it, so they just let it pass, and then let the voters decide. Is that kind of the intent, maybe? Like where they don't take a vote because they don't want to sway the vote. They just feel like maybe it's just go to a vote.
Well, I should mention that within the charters, there are separate sections. Some of them are within citizen participation measures, but it's just a random clause that basically states that if town council wants to put something up to a town election as opposed to voting on it themselves, they have that option. So that is already available. We can make that available to them. Anything that they don't want to have to vote on and take the heat on.
But I guess the difference is, in this case, a group initiated this versus the town council.
Yes, but even if a group were to bring it, I think there's nothing precluding them from not putting an initiative measure to a vote by the town. Even if it's not called for here within that action list.
But even if they did that, then they're still taking an action to do that instead of just not doing something about it.
True.
Right. But
I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is. I mean, each scenario, I think it all depends on the type of initiative and what the scenario around the initiative, how the town council may want to play it. I don't know if there's a right answer when it comes down to it.
Well, I think the Randolph and Watertown options give them, the most options available forcing the issue. Again, I would hate to see them, I definitely don't want to see them ignore it and have it be rejected. I really don't want it passed on a, just because it's in there and they didn't meet the time frame. Now, granted, they have allowed for significantly longer, so it does eliminate things of, summer vacations and things like that. They've got they're looking at Amherst specifically, they've got 60 days to do something with it. So it's less of a chance of it getting passed on a technicality by just not being addressed.
On Amherst, maybe I can't, am I not seeing the whole action? I see nothing as being passed.
Yeah.
Am I missing some verbiage?
Oh, there we go. Yep, sorry. Anybody want to offer up any ideas?
I like the idea of the no vote option. If it's automatically built into the chart, if you said they automatically have that option anyway, even though it's not stated here, I don't think it would hurt to state it and give those three options so that they are Because I do like the idea, you know, Dave mentioned, even if they're not voting, or they're going to go for a no vote option, they are still taking action. And I like that idea.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion that if we're probably going to make them jump through at least some minimum amount of hoops, it should get the attention it deserves.
Laura, is there a reason there's no 3 for those for Randolph and Watertown? You have 1, 2, 4. Was there a 3?
No, it was probably just misnumbered. I think I probably cut and pasted it from Amherst and changed 1 and 2 and never changed 3.
So what I'm wondering is, I don't think them pushing it to a vote would be an action, because it's defining the actions above, right?
Yep.
The actions would be pass it without change, pass something in lieu of the action, initiative, or reject it. Those are the actions. So maybe to David's point, could we add,
Put it to a vote?
to a town vote?
So similar to Barnstable? That's their second option in Barnstable.
Yeah, I mean, that's what that's
Okay,
the
but
option.
all right. The only thing we need to consider there is if we do that, those towns that have put that option in there to put it up for a vote have removed the supplemental provision to fight it.
But why would you need it if deemed rejected, right? Why do you have to take that out, though?
It looks like Barnstable can't reject it. They can either pass it or put it to the vote. So
Yeah.
there would be no need for there to be a supplemental
Right.
provision.
Yeah. All right, good point. Okay, so amend either Randolph or Watertown, but add a 4th to put it to the town vote. Does that seem like the direction we're heading?
That's fine by me.
That's fine by me. That's what I meant when I said no vote option. I meant no vote on the side of the council and put it to the town vote.
I apologize. I need to step out for a little bit, but I will be back.
Okay. We'll be here. Okay. Are we okay with no action happens within 30 days? They have to stop working on everything else?
That's my preferred option.
I'm okay with it. Anybody feel strongly the other way? All right. Let's talk about the initial steps and how onerous we want to make it on the citizens. So assuming we are going to have a supplemental provision, let's talk about the initial threshold that we want to see met in order to bring the initiative forward. Do we want to have it just a certain number of signatures, set number, doesn't change, or do we want to make it a percentage of the registered voters?
I would suggest percentage of the registered voters, given that the population can flux. This would leave us with a consistent ratio of the population.
Okay. Give me 1 second. I just want to make sure I've got the 574. I did get it right. Okay.
So just for a comparison, right now, I'm thinking of our current format right now. We have 200 or 250 required to bring an initiative and put an article on the town meeting warrant.
Yep.
Would it not make sense to keep the same for the initial? I mean, what we're doing is forcing the town council to vote on it, right?
Yep.
We would be forcing town meeting to vote on it. So I don't necessarily think that first threshold needs to be very high.
So right now, Sandy, within our charter, does it make reference to having to go to town council to deem whether the action that they want is lawful?
No, because I know we've had things that the town council has deemed unlawful. It has to go on however the petitioner writes it
Okay.
right now. And it's either 200 or 250.
I'm kind of viewing it as, there's an expense associated with that, and maybe we should make the thresholds. I'm not against making it a certain number of signatures, but maybe make it a little bit higher. Although 250 is... 2%. Which doesn't seem like it would be. But we don't have very many registered voters, so.
Do we have any perspective at why the towns that we're looking at here have such a wide range of signatures? I mean, 250 out of 21,000 in Randolph is roughly 1%.
Yeah.
And it goes all the way up to 10%. That's weird to me.
I think they don't want to allow initiative measures, or they have not thought of the practical implications of having to get that many signatures in a short amount of time.
Well, there isn't a time limit here though, right?
No, you're right. There's not.
You can start collecting codes whenever, you can start collecting signatures whenever you want.
Right. Yeah,
In my head,
Go ahead, Dave, sorry.
No, I was gonna say, I think you can start collecting signatures at any point, because it's not a particular form. Well, I guess it is a particular form, but I don't think there's a date. You just
No,
start
there's not.
collecting. Yeah, you take however long you want, I think.
However long it takes.
So in my head originally, I was thinking the 10% number seemed reasonable because this just felt like it should be a big deal. But when I heard Sandy say it's 250 to town meeting and town meeting is the executive function and this is the new executive, I just kind of went, huh.
I actually take that
That
back.
seems reasonable.
It's only 10. It's 10 for a regular town meeting. It's 100 to get a special town meeting.
What was the thing they did on Bay Road? I thought they needed 200 signatures. What was that for? To have the bylaw we looked at?
Was that to call a special town meeting? I think that was to call a special town meeting, right?
I don't remember, but I remember 200 sticking in my head.
Yeah, I mean, you can put a warrant article on for with any 10 voters for the regular town meeting, any 100 voters for a special town meeting. And there's also what they did was they called a special town meeting, so it wasn't an existing meeting. And that's why they needed more signatures.
Laura, could we, and I hate doing this, but could we possibly punt the numbers here and try to get a little bit more context between now and the next meeting as to why there's a 3,000 signature range between the high and the low on this sheet, or is it really just
It was really
people
just
that want
whatever
to do it or don't want to do it?
I think that's what their charter commission deemed as reasonable. I think if we looked at another 6 charters, we'd probably have just as wide of a range. With regards to looking at Barnstable, you can see Barnstable has a somewhat higher threshold because it either passes or it goes to a vote, and there's no supplemental provision. So there's nothing further to get it done. So that initial threshold I can see as being on the higher side. With regards to North Attleboro and Watertown, I think those are unnecessarily high.
Well, keep in mind North Attleboro also for their referendum has 15% in 30, 60 days, which is crazy to me because they just went through a charter.
21 days.
Yeah, they just gone through and they took them just as long to get their signatures as it did us. So I don't necessarily think they were thinking about what was reasonable there, because I don't see how, after you just spent 3-4 months collecting signatures, you could think 15% in 21 days is possible.
No. What did you say? Within 21 days, we had under 1,000 collected? 9 something?
Yeah, something like that.
And they've got 7,000 more registered voters than we do. So I think looking at it from at least comparing ourselves to other towns in this respect is probably not going to be helpful. I think we just need to determine what's reasonable.
Yeah. I mean, I think Dave too, I think Bartown, as the nature of the town, you think of like Barnstable, you can go stand in downtown Main Street, Hyannis, and probably collect signatures all day long. Versus here in Norton, where it's almost impossible to stand in place. So many different variables.
Yeah, I think we kind of have to look at it from what's right for the town of Norton. Even just see, I'm shocked when I should be able to do the math in my head, but even just looking at 250 signatures as being 2%, I was kind of surprised how high that came in. That can't be right, can it? Did I do the math wrong?
But you're not counting in the extra buffer that you're going to need, right? So if it says 250, you're going to need another 20% on top of that. So you're going to need
right. But even the initial, yeah,
that's about right. It was 12,000. 10% is 1,200. So.
Yeah, it's 1250. 12,547 or 574. So 500 signatures would be 4%. Yeah, I mean, I guess if we are as low as 100 right now, 250 is probably not a tough ask. Hold on, somebody's. Give me 1 second. Somebody's chatting. Janie is having audio visual difficulties. She's going to sign out and sign back in. Okay. Hopefully she's back.
Yeah, I think keeping it in line with what we currently, I mean, right now you have 200 signatures to call a special town meeting, right? Which is an expense, which is a.
Yep.
And so for me, 250 to say to the town council, I want you to vote on this. I don't know why that bar has to be that super high.
Yeah, because I mean, if it's frivolous or it's just, it's just.
It gets voted down.
Yeah, you just vote it down.
Yeah, there's, this town council or town attorney expense, but hopefully it's minimal.
They're not retained on.
Don't know.
Yeah.
Is anybody against 250 as the number?
I missed the earlier conversation. I apologize. I guess my concern would be how much more to get on the ballot, because I think the bar needs to be high enough that you're not completely overrunning the people that you've elected to create law. You know what I mean? Right now, we don't have anybody to create law except the citizens. But we are, town meeting is the legislative branch. So now we're saying we're going to elect people to be that branch and to make law. So I would want to make sure that, you can't just put something on the ballot to go around them.
Right, but we're just talking right now about the first step of just forcing town council to say yes or no.
Right, but I'm saying if it's going to be as low as 250, we need to make sure that we make it that supplemental a lot higher, I think.
Yes, I would agree. That if they reject it, and it's basically an appeals process is what winds up happening, and then we've got to figure out if they really feel strongly about it, what is the correct number to have to get to appeal that and bring it to a vote. So as long as the supplemental provision is, a percentage of registered voters in a high bar, but not an insurmountable bar, I'm okay with leaving the initial petition at 250. Anybody feel differently?
I don't. I guess I'll just say, rather than doing a number, should we just do 2%? Just so as time goes on.
Yeah. Sandy?
Yeah, I guess again, we don't have that right now, right? We have a number for.
I'm just throwing it out because if the town all of a sudden grows, I don't know, doubles in size in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the right answer. I'm just throwing it out there.
I don't know where they're going to go.
That's a valid point.
That's true.
I guess I just don't think this part of it is a very big deal, right? We're just saying to the town council, can you vote on this? And they can in 1 minute say no, we're rejecting it.
My preference would be a percentage as well. Just because, like you said, the town might grow or even shrink, right?
Yeah, I think, so the only time, I forget, it basically stipulates the percentage of registered voters at the last election. So I don't see that number. I mean, unless, we've got a significant part of the population, because our population is like 19 or 20,000. So, if people age up and stay, that could increase. But in terms of, new growth, it's not a hell of a lot of spots for them that aren't wet.
Yeah, I guess at the end, I can go either way because, if you collect 250, you put a decent effort into it. I mean, no matter if it's how many couples, you still put a decent effort into getting it. All you're doing is asking them to take a vote. That's all to do.
Yeah. Anybody feel strongly about a number versus a percentage? You want to fight about it?
whatever Denise says, I'm going to say the opposite.
Duly noted.
Oh, either way.
In that
I
case,
like the percentage, but not enough to fight over it.
Yeah.
That's Denise.
Yeah, same here.
in that case, Dave, I want a number.
I knew I could trick it. I want a number 2.
All right. Is 250 our number?
So,
Okay. Put it in. All right. All right. We can talk about what we'll make the attorney figure out what the hell we want to call it. All right. So town council rejects it. What do we feel is a adequate number of signatures to appeal it? And I'm just going to start plugging in numbers just so you can see what they are. So 5% is 628 signatures. We also have to specify the time frame in which they need to collect them.
I'll throw out the conversation starter at 10%.
Do I hear 11?
I'm going to say 11.
All right, 10% is going to be 1,200 signatures. That is 2/3 of what we needed to get for the Charter Commission.
And how long did we have for the Charter Commission? Remind me, please.
Sandy, if I'm not mistaken, I think we banked for, we had to get it in before a certain point in December, so somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 months.
Well, we had as long as we wanted to. We just had to get it in before December. But how long it took us was 3.5 months. But I would say again, we're looking at, you're looking at, it sounds like $1,250, right? But it's really an extra 20% on top of that.
True.
I'm inclined to go lower. That's my general feel.
Are you like my Newman now? Newman!
I think if we are going to have a required voter participation in order to get it to pass,
Right.
I'm more inclined to go a little bit lower on the petition, knowing that I might even be inclined to drop this 20%. I'm not sure we get 20% on ever, unless it's a really hot topic. I'm thinking even 20. We do not have to require a voter participation level to pass. The charters that we did review did have them. We don't have to.
I really like the idea. Again, I think the bar needs to be high if you're going around your elected legislative branch.
Okay, but 20% high, knowing we've never had an election that's 20%, or few elections that have hit 20%?
I was gonna say we have, like for hot topics, yeah, but for the most part, voter apathy is 1%. But if you're bringing it, if you're trying to go around elected officials, I think you should rally a lot of people to go.
Okay.
Maybe I misunderstood, but I thought, like, not that about 20%. I thought that was based on. I thought it was 20% of the number of people who voted in the last election, right?
Rather than total registered voters. That sounds really familiar, David.
Hang on.
It does sound familiar, yeah.
I just saw it too now. I can't find it.
I read it. Hang on. So voter participation requirement in North Attleboro, oh, sorry, that's Amherst. Hang on. North Attleboro is this one.
Yeah, North Attleboro, it is the total, 20% of the total number of voters as of the last annual town election participate in the election. No, so that sounds like it's registered voters.
Yeah.
You think that is registered voters? All right,
Yeah.
I think I read it the other way.
But I just feel like we read that somewhere.
It's possible I just saw 20% and grabbed it.
Well, the 20's right, but I guess I read it as 20% of the number of people who voted.
Amherst is the same. It's the number of registered voters.
Yeah.
So.
Just for perspective on our election, which was a pretty well attended election last year, it was still only 15% of the voting population that showed up, and that was one of our highest ones. You know, other than an override, it's pretty much 15% as high as we've reached in the last few years.
How much do we get in an override?
Hang on.
Everybody.
The override. What year was that?
So keep in mind, I updated the number of petition to include a 20% buffer. So just when you see those numbers, so 10% is technically 12.5, but 1,500 with a buffer.
The override was 4,300. But our elections have been, 1,900, 1,800, and those were the high ones.
So 4,300 was third.
34%.
I suspect the ones that were a percentage of the people who voted at the last election would be for something more like a recall, not this. That would make more sense to me, I think.
I'll have to go back and look because I may have just glossed over that and grabbed the percentage thinking it was the registered voters.
Yeah.
So this is all my notes, not official.
No, it seems like I think you're right here, Laura.
I think it right.
No, I am susceptible to being wrong.
Yeah,
In North Attleboro's case, I think you have it right. I thought I read it before.
Yep.
I think it should be a considerable threshold because, like Carrie said, we've elected these officials to vote on our behalf in lieu of a town meeting, and this is a workaround, and it seems like this should be a harder threshold to get over.
And isn't that what we are right now, too? I mean, we're a workaround, right? The Charter Commission. And even with all of our pushing and all of our
Right,
we only got 15%. We didn't get 20% of the voters to show up.
I thought so. I'm talking about 10% for the signatures. The participation, I don't know.
It's a weird concept when you think about it, because what happens if you have an election, you have a vote, and 19% of the registered voters show up, like the whole thing is no. It's just weird.
Yeah, and then so what happens? You're counting as they come in, and if there's not enough people, you just say everyone go home now.
Well, I assume you're going in and thinking it's a ballot, right? I guess you're going.
I think it's a ballot.
Yeah.
Ballot, yeah.
But you're right, though. At some point, you might say, like, nobody else. But, it's. Or you might be calling people the last minute saying, I need more people around here. I mean, I get the purpose, because you don't want frivolous things passing now.
Yeah. So I don't mind 5% as the initial participant signatures needed. I'm struggling with whether 20 is the correct to get it to pass.
No, I mean, does 15 sound reasonable? If, we want to make it achievable, but, it's got to be the hot topic for that ballot. You got to get people out.
Well, I have an email from Lauren Goldberg. Sorry, I was just checking my phone. I think we may have lost Janie. I don't see her.
That feels about right to you, though, to carry 5 and then 15 on participation.
So the only argument I've heard for lowering required voter participation below 20 is that getting 20% to the ballot is hard to do. And I think that's an argument to keep it at 20, right? Because this is about overriding the duly elected legislative branch of government in town. And that should be really hard to do. We elect these people, we have them on a rolling election cycle so that there's always an opportunity to vote people out. This is something that is going to be a many-month process from start to finish. So if this was going to happen, it would very likely overlap with a regular election cycle anyway, giving people an opportunity to potentially vote in or vote out whomever it is that isn't doing what they should be doing in this office. And I don't see why we would do anything to make it any easier to override these people that have been elected than what all these other towns have done.
Well, I guess my counter argument to that only is, in Norton, we don't get a high participation rate. That's just, we don't. It's not a political town.
I think anybody does.
Yeah, in federal elections, yeah, you don't get that in federal elections. I mean, it's obviously different numbers, but it's still not a high rate. Just the fact that there is an option to override our duly elected officials, that's an impressive feat in and of itself. It should be something that requires an overwhelming groundswell of support to get done.
So I guess, David, doesn't necessarily, so the percentage to me is kind of weird, because if you have 20% show up, and then you have, just over half of those vote in favor of it, and the others vote against it, versus if you only have 15% who show up, but they all support it, right? Then you have more support with the 15%.
So are you arguing that the petition signature should be higher?
I'm just saying 20% is really high, and we didn't even get that for our election. And we did sort of the same thing, right? We overrode our elected officials. We wanted a charter commission independent of the Board of Selectmen to review the charter, and we certainly campaigned for it. And we passed overwhelmingly. So those people who came supported us. But we don't get 20% unless it involves people's pockets, right? Unless it involves an override.
So all that means, though, if you can't get 20%, is you live with the decision of the town council, and then when they come up for election, you rally voters to vote people out if you don't feel like they're voting the right way. It's not
I keep coming back to I don't want to reward voter apathy.
Right. I mean, people need to get involved.
I guess, again, I just find that ironic because we're here because we only got 15%, right? That anyone could make the same argument about this commission right now. That people weren't badly enough, or that we couldn't get the 20% to show up to vote for us.
But this wasn't allowed because of our charter. This was a state law provision. That allowed us.
Yeah, I also
this isn't
look at
something
it
we could
as,
do through town meeting.
It is something we could have done through a legislative act, right? We could have gone through the Board of Selectmen, and that's what was tried before. But we wanted to bypass that.
we still didn't have that second threshold that we had to pass, though. All we needed was the 15%, and we had
Right, that's my point, is that we wouldn't have passed, we would not be here if we had a required participation voter rate of 20%. We would not have formed. We would have gotten all those signatures and we still wouldn't have been able to form a commission if that was that stringent. I think 15% is still really hard to get.
It's 1,900 people.
Yeah, I just think.
How about 17 and a half and we split the difference?
I guess the other thing I'm concerned with is we're not. This is a petition by a significant minority of the voting population in town. So how easy do we want to make it?
But if people are opposed, they should show up and vote against it, right? And again, you could pass it,
You can say the same.
with a lesser percentage. You know, you could have, like us, we had, you know, a huge amount of people voted for the commission, even though we only had 15% of the population show up. It was still an overwhelming majority. So even if you had 20%, but you just had a 50-50 or just barely above 50-50, that's not really overwhelming support that way either for this new petition. It just seems arbitrary, I guess, to come up with that 20% when we know that doesn't usually happen, even with hotly contested races here in Norton.
I do tend to agree with Dave Heaney, though, that it should be hard to turn over a vote of elected officials.
This isn't to turn over one. This isn't a referendum, though.
Oh, this isn't the referendum. No, you're right. Well, it is if they've rejected it.
Yeah, we're only at this point if the town council has rejected the initiative that's been brought to them, right? I think.
Yes. Yes.
Or if they've said we want to go to a town vote. If they pushed it off.
Well, yeah, we would need to put it in two different places then. So we would need to have voter participation required to pass here, and then another one if it's a supplemental provision. Those should probably be the same number.
Yeah, going way back to the beginning, I suspect this is why you have, in some towns, doing nothing lets it proceed. Because if the council rejects it, then at least it's implied they're against it, right? I think. At least politically, it's perceived to be that they're against this initiative. When in reality, maybe they're not really against it. They don't have a position one way or the other, but they rejected it. So now it's going to be pretty tough to get 20% when you have a board that's has voted to reject something. That's why I suspect some of the towns have it a little more passive, if you will. Because when you reject something, that's a kind of a forceful action, I think.
Yeah. All right. So are you saying that here, if option number 4 and it puts to a town vote, this threshold should be lower than the supplemental provision to overturn the town council? Is that your position?
I don't know what my position is actually. I guess I was just saying that I understand why some town councils don't force a vote. They let it passively pass because they don't want to take a position.
Well, then they shouldn't have pulled papers and gotten elected if they don't want to take a position.
But they don't want to take a position because they don't feel like they're in a position to take a position. Because they're like, we don't know. What does the town want?
Yeah. All right. So we gave them that option. They can put it up for a vote. So let's talk about that threshold then. Should there be one, and what should it be? And should it be the same as the threshold within the supplemental provision?
I think M and P should be 15. So in other words, instead of 15%, what's the top of the number of days? 15% and then 15% to show up in the ballot.
Sorry, go back again, Dave. You said M as in Mary and P?
Yeah, so column M, which is percent of percent, you have 15 there.
Okay.
And then you have to have those 15 for, and then 15 will show up at the election.
What do I do?
So you have to, it's tough to get the signatures. You gotta get 15%, it's a pretty high hurdle.
Yeah, that's, well, it depends on how long you've given them, but that was more
Right.
signatures than, that's the same number of signatures that we needed, and we needed 3.5 months to get.
Yeah, I guess my general thought though is, I think, I think at least some of us feel 20% is in the nature of knowing, right, is this kind of, it's high. You don't get a high participation rate in knowing. But as a compromise, if we increase the percentage of signatures required to even get it on the ballot, it's a higher hurdle to get to that point.
Yeah, I think 15% signatures is, just to even get it on the ballot is insurmountable, no matter how long you give them, and we really cannot give them that long. We can't hold up town business that well. If it's an initiative, the citizens have brought it forward. It's been rejected. Nobody's looking at, yeah, all right. Still, you don't want to have it languishing out there forever. 45 is probably the maximum number of days I'd be comfortable with it being out there.
Yeah.
And 15%
I guess I misspoke, because under our scenario, I guess it really isn't rejected, right? They didn't come out and outright reject it. They just said, you know what, we'll bring it to a vote.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So I think 5% here is perfectly reasonable for the number of signatures to appeal it. Yes, no, maybe.
I guess I agree with David that I'd rather see that a little bit higher. And I mean, it depends what we do with the percent to pass. I wouldn't mind putting that to 10%. I think 10% in 45 days is possible.
Yeah, I'm okay with it being 5% as long as there's a threshold for the voter participation. I think 15% is probably too high. For
Here?
that column. No, for M.
Yeah, I think 15%.
But I'd only want to see it at 5 if we required, 15 to 20% show up. Because that at least gives you time, to require the same for both. Once you get the signatures, then you get some time to do some public education and get people to the polls. So
Outreach,
they
yeah.
require the same amount I guess they're not necessarily supporting it. You're just trying to get them to sign it so that it gets on the ballot, but not everybody understands that when they're signing these petitions. They think they have to support it.
So are we okay with petition signatures at 5%?
If there's a required voter participation percentage.
Yep, which I think
I don't know that we've.
I think we should probably have one. Yeah. What is an appropriate number of days? Sorry, David Wren? Did you have something?
Oh, days? Oh, I don't know. No, I guess my own comment is going to be, if you make the percentage of signatures you're going to require too high, and then you make it high, let's say 15%, like I was proposing, but then you have a participation rate to get it over the hurdle. If 20% of the voters show up, which we all know is very, very high, you're basically setting these people up to fail by requiring 15% of signatures, and they're putting a heck of a lot of effort into something.
Yes.
That's almost 0% chance of ever happening.
Yeah, my concern too with the low threshold to get it on a ballot is that's when you're going to start incurring the significant cost, right? So I'd rather have a higher threshold there, make it worth our time and money to get it on a ballot. And either, 15 and 15, like Dave suggested, 10 and 20. I'm fine with any of those options, but I think 5 seems a little low to me for incurring all the time and expense of putting together an election ballot.
I'm looking at this like an algebra problem. I just want the total to be 25, and I almost don't care about the split. Like whether it's 10 and 15 or 5 and 20 or 15 and 10, like there needs to be, I think, structure on both of them. But I think I'm with Kerry where I'm more willing to go lower on the signatures if the voter participation is higher, and vice versa.
So
I think that's what Kerry said.
Can I propose 10 for petition and 15 for voter participation?
If that was a motion, I would vote yes.
I'm okay with that too.
Anybody feel strongly against it?
I like that.
Okay. How many days to collect 10% of signatures? Oh, the other thing we have to decide, here's the other weird thing. Some charters, they have to be 5% in additional to the signatures you've already collected, and in some cases, they can include the original petitioners.
I say
They should be additional. Oh, sorry, Sandy.
I was going to say, since it's 10%, I was going to say it includes it, but.
Yeah, and we're only requiring 250 in the first place. So throwing them in there, it's, letting them use them, they're going to need all the help they can get. So I'm okay letting them use the original petitioners.
Well, since they can use the original petitioners, I'd like to propose 30 days.
Yeah, but the original petitioners is only 250 people. Remember?
So that's 2%.
Yeah.
So we have 2 of 10. So they have to collect, Sandy, what's the rule? You gotta collect how many to be safe?
An additional 20%.
So that number looks like this.
Yeah, I'm okay with the 45 days.
Kerry, you're okay with 45 days and the original 250 count?
I mean, I'd prefer they be additional, but I don't feel strongly enough. It's a small enough number. I can be persuaded.
We include the additional, if we include the original, you're basically requiring another 10. Because you gotta pick up the extra 2 in the back end, so.
Yeah.
So it becomes, they're almost true numbers, I guess, 10 and 15. They're true. Yeah, we'll be at midnight for the referendum.
Yeah. That's why I said I think this one's going to go to 2 meetings. All right, 10%, and we're going to allow the original petitioners, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. 45 days, is that what we decided?
I don't think we did, did we?
Considering all of these are 5% and they've allowed 45, I don't want to allow more than that. It's
No,
achievable.
I wouldn't allow more than that.
Yeah. So it's 45 days is 6 weeks, so it's double the amount of time that we took to get 1,000 signatures. So 45 is reasonable. Yes? I'm typing it.
So, not to be a stickler for my silly rule of 25, but we effectively just took 2% off of what we needed for signatures. So I don't know if everybody else was thinking that way, or if 2% on the math doesn't make a difference or anything, but it just feels like it's different than what we originally talked about. Now, really what we're talking about is 8% additional and 15% at the...
Well, not really though, Dave. You have to get a 20% extra for the ones that are going to get thrown out.
So the original petitioners can be your buffer.
Yes, he's still
right, or they can be the ones. But I mean, at the end of the day, we're saying the number is 250 lower than what it was, right? Because those are 250 known to be good that already count towards it. So.
Yeah, you don't get to. You still have to go get the signature on the new petition. You don't get to carry them over. You just can have. You're allowed to use them.
Is that what that means?
I believe so.
I think so. I think you still have to get them to sign again.
You do not get to reuse the petition from the first round.
Got it. Okay.
At least that's how I would want it. I wouldn't want you to automatically be able to carry over the first petition.
Yeah.
Can we check on that and see if that's what that means?
Yeah, I'm going to go to Randolph right now.
Yeah, if that's not what that means, then I'm going to stick to my original that you need the additional.
So this is under, I can't remember where it was. Sorry, I got to move you guys. You're in my way. There you go. All right, which may include the signatures of voters who signed the original petition if they sign the supplemental petition. So they have to sign both. You can't just take the petition papers from the original 250 and use them.
Okay, I think we should include that language then in there, right? So making that clear.
Okay. I think Randolph was the only one who had that option. May include original, must sign, so petition. Okay. All right. So if town council, going back to the first initiative, town council decides to put it out for a vote, what is our threshold requirement to get it to pass?
Do we have to have a threshold?
We do not, no. But
I mean, at that point, you're not going around your town council. They've basically ceded their right to accept or reject it. And they're leaving it up to the voters. So I think it's a different circumstance. So it doesn't need to be the same.
Does
Yeah,
there need to be a threshold? I feel like there still should be one.
For me, I don't see it any different than any other question that would be on the ballot for an election, right? We don't have a threshold for anything else. If our town council suggests that it should go to ballot, then I don't think we should have a threshold.
Okay.
That's just but I don't really care that much, so I can be persuaded.
Whoever motivates the correct number of people. Majority
So
vote.
you're in box J10 right now? That's what box you're talking about? Were we talking about box J10?
Yes, which normally we wouldn't worry about, but because the only time it was brought up above was in Barnstable, one of the options was to put it to a vote, and in Franklin, it automatically goes to a vote, so they had a threshold requirement. Since we added the option to put it to a vote,
Right.
the question then becomes, do we need a threshold or want a threshold?
Isn't that I'm sorry, maybe I'm missing something, but isn't that the same thing as column P?
Not really, no. So here, if town council decides they don't want to vote on it and wants to put it up for a vote, if we don't put a threshold here, it's just majority rules. Whereas here, in P, it is a rejection of town council's vote. So that threshold does need to.
This is a rejection.
Yes. Here, it's just town council decides to put it out for a vote. So, probably.
I have to really be careful on how we word that because, I mean, no one else has that scenario, right?
Correct.
So I would say, I mean, if they're deciding to put it to a town vote, if they choose option 4, then we don't have a threshold because that's their decision, right? And then that's part of their decision-making process. Do they want a threshold? If they want a threshold, they should reject it and force it to go to
a supplemental.
Yeah.
I totally agree, Sandy.
But I think, again, it has to be really clear because I don't think that is clear from that chart at all.
No. Well, I'm going to give this to the smart lady and.
Right, but I'm saying to Lauren, we have to qualify what that means now, right? That means that if the town council chooses the action 4, then there is that's the exception to column P.
Correct.
So we kind of have to just spell that out.
Maybe make a note that column going applicable for option 4 under the going scenario.
Okay.
I think it's 3.
No, option 4 is town vote over here.
Right.
I think they would say the 15% is only required if via option 3.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, correct. That was a creaky door.
Well, are we saying that they can't do the supplemental measure if the town council changes it? So it would be for 2 and 3?
2 and 3, right? That's true.
Yep. Right, but that's standard for the supplemental provision regardless. I think we only need to clarify
I just wanted
it.
to be clear. Yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to be
Yep.
clear in this conversation.
Got it. All right. We still have a question here. We're going to talk to school committee. All right. I think we're good here. Is everybody happy with what we've got?
As long as those, I see your notes. No way. Sorry.
That's okay.
On column M. Yep.
Okay. So, I I will take a motion to set the parameters of the initiative citizen participation measure at 250 initial petition signatures. I'm not going to guide this whole motion thing.
Do we want to wait until we decide whether it's going to be town council and school committee and what the exemptions are going to be before we
Sure.
actually take a vote?
That's fine. Let's do that. Let's move on. Let's make some progress. Okay. Hang on. Let me hit save before I blow this all up. Okay. Do we want to talk about the excluded measures at this point, or do we want to go to referendum?
Let's do referendum.
Okay. Good answer. All right. So, a referendum is when town council and or school has passed a bylaw, measure, ordinance, what have you, that the town wants rescinded, repealed, reconsidered in some manner. Let's see, almost every town, so there were, as you can see, very varying thresholds for the percentage of signatures required and what happens. So in the most cases, town council would take it back for, I don't know why Franklin was so weird. Most towns would take it back under revisement. Town council would review their position. If they decided not to change it, then it would go to a town vote. And then, with the exception of Watertown, they all had thresholds in order for that to pass. Here's where it gets a little interesting again, as you can see the time frame in which most towns are giving its participants to collect a hefty number of signatures is not very big, and this is for a reason, and that's because a measure or ordinance has been passed, and once if they want it reversed, it has to be done in a timely manner so as not to kind of screw everything up. Town council or, town goes about its business thinking that town council has passed a particular bylaw or ordinance, and if the people of the town want that reviewed, rescinded, repealed, it needs to be done in a timely manner. So we need to be considerate of this number probably needs to be significantly smaller than where it was in the initiative measure. And commensurately, do we then want to adjust the number of signatures down as well? Make sense to everybody?
Yep.
Okay. I think, the outcome, I think it definitely should go back to town council. I don't think it should just automatically go to a vote. Town council should have the first option to take some action on it. If everybody's in agreement, as opposed to it going just straight to a vote.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's decide, I guess, first on the number of days, and then maybe we can back into what we think is a acceptable, reasonable, adequate number of signatures. Does everybody like 21 days? Do we think it's too long? I think 10 is too short.
10 days to organize anything, in my mind, is almost impossible.
Yeah.
Unless Sandy's in charge of it.
True.
Assuming that this is calendar days and not business days, then I would say 21 days is fine with me.
Yeah, the Barnstable one is now making me wonder if it was, so what are we looking for, a referendum?
Where some of these have 20 days, I'm thinking that those are probably business.
Yeah.
And the 14 and the 21 are probably calendar. So I just think we need to be clear whether or not talking business days or calendar days when we decide on it.
Yeah, I'm looking in 5%.
But I would assume they're all just days. I mean, you talk about a town charter, not a, you know, business days is not a common town for.
Yeah, in Barnstable, where they had 10 days, I kind of expected that to be business days, but it's just 10 days, which implies calendar. And I think it would have probably said calendar days or business days, and I would have made a note of it.
Yeah, there's usually a section in the law that says, you know, what days mean, and sometimes, like, if it's less than 10 days, then it means business days. If it's more, it means calendar days.
Okay. So, probably looking at 14 to 21 days. Anybody have a preference on which end of that range?
I do not have a preference.
No, I don't have a strong preference.
Okay.
I think it depends on what you choose for percentage, but I'm leaning towards 21 days.
I was hoping if we picked the number of days, then we could back into the percentage. Hang on one second. Okay. All right, so let's assume, should we say 20 or 21 days? It's 3 weeks.
Yeah,
Could potentially be
21, so that it's exactly 3 weeks.
All right, in 3 weeks, what is a reasonable number of signatures to have to collect in order to overturn town council?
10 to 15%.
Whoa.
I was gonna say 5. I know 15 is not possible. And I don't even know that 10 is.
So in 21 days, we collected, I just looked it up, it was 967, I think you had said last week, Sandy?
That sounds right, yeah.
Yeah.
I just think this needs to be very hard.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Achieve.
I think similar to before, it needs to be challenging because our town council has made a decision and this is overturning that. So I don't think it should be too easy.
And when we compare it to what we did for the Charter Commission, we didn't start with any kind of a burning platform, right? If this is going to be something where people are ticked off enough that by a vote that was taken or something that was done, that they're willing to go and do this, it's because something acute happened, and there's a starting point, right, of that energy and that we just didn't have, right? We had more of a slow burn that ramped up over time, but not a big bang like we would have for this situation.
Yeah, the culmination of this would be a vote by town council that was not well received.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, I guess my thought is, so it wasn't well received, so perhaps town council misread the town. It's not a lot of people on POs, but so in that scenario though,
They have the option to review it.
I think you want it to be doable. Because if town council truly just didn't read the town correctly, I don't know, let's the marijuana, for example, people just freaked out one way or the other. You want to make it doable because, the town council is not infallible, I guess, is what I'm sort of thinking. Maybe they just meant maybe. I get it, you don't want them over, every time they decide on something, it's controversial, you don't want it overturned, I totally get it. But perhaps if I guess you just want to make the hurdle so high that it's impossible to get over. Perhaps okay.
Go ahead, finish, sorry.
No, you can go.
I was just gonna say, no matter what the issue is or the matter that's being voted on, there's going to be a percentage of the population that's not gonna, that's just, you're never gonna get anything that's 100%, this is a great idea, no matter what the issue is.
Yeah, no, I totally agree there. No, I'm just saying that if you just, maybe as town council, you realize after the fact that, Jesus, that was not the reaction we expected in any way, shape, or form. Because the town council now is, they're making a lot of votes that, right now, our selectmen don't have to make, because they gets deferred to town meeting, right? It falls out wherever it may. So they have a lot of responsibility, it's fine.
They're also having 2 meetings going into that vote at which the public could attend, so they should have a decent idea if there is groundswell against it, that they're going to have some opposition.
And 10% certainly is not a majority of the population, right? So it's not like you're asking for the majority of the town voters to come in and sign this petition. 10% is not, it's a small percentage. I mean, I know it's a lot to get because of voter apathy, and it's just hard to get people to have an interest in something. That's a different issue. As number of voters in the town, 10% is not a lot.
I don't see this as a voter apathy issue, though. I see this as a feasibility issue with knowing that you have 3 weekends, right, to stand in front of CVS or wherever to get signatures or to get everyone to get their friends' signatures. That there's a place to go to get those signatures, and all you're doing is sending it to a vote.
If the issue is that hot, it shouldn't be that hot. You put out, we're going to be at these 5 places this weekend, and people should be coming to you if they're that hot about the issue.
Yeah, I just think this really needs to be hard. Like, we can't allow legislating by we can't override everything that the town council does. So I think this needs to be even harder than the initiative petition.
Okay, keep in mind,
action.
Yeah, keep in mind though that we can still have a voter participation threshold to get it to pass. If they don't meet that threshold, the referendum does not pass. So this is just to get it to the ballot, or to get town council to reconsider it.
Yeah, and I guess I see it the opposite. I see the initiative as a higher threshold, or should be a higher threshold. I'm more so thinking of all the different initiative petitions that have come forward at town meeting, compared to voting something down, voting against something. And again, this just gets you to the ballot, just gets you to holding the election.
My fear is you're going to be hard pressed to get people that are going to want to run for town council if they're going to get overturned every time they vote on something that there's 5% of the population doesn't like it.
Yeah, it's just 5%, but the 5% is only getting it on the ballot.
Right. You still have to so we still have to decide this number, Denise, is once it goes to the ballot, what's the threshold of participation to get it to be overturned?
We've elected officials to make the decision for us. They've made a decision. It shouldn't be super easy to then overturn their vote or get it on a ballot and incur all the added expense and costs of all of that to get it on a ballot very easy. It should be hard to do.
So I just did the percentages. So for 3 weeks, we got 967 signatures. That represents 7.6% of the voting population. So perhaps the compromise is, instead of 5 or 10%, the compromise is 7.5%. It's doable. It's hard.
Well, Laura, again, you're not counting in the buffer, right?
I am not.
So we didn't really get 7.5%.
I think we just need to be careful about comparing this to the challenges that we had for the charter commission signatures, because this is a different animal.
I'm just looking at the fact that we had like 50 people out every single day trying to collect signatures, and no, people weren't saying no. It wasn't a matter of not getting people to buy in. It was a matter of the physical challenges of not really having places to go in this town to even get those signatures.
Yeah,
And we were lucky that we had the fall. We had all the back to school stuff. And depending on when this happens, you may not have, could be in the middle of dead middle of winter, and you're trying to get signatures, and then you're literally just hoping all your friends sign.
These should be the kinds of issues that people are clamoring to find you to sign the paper, not vice versa.
I concur.
Yep.
I just think there's a fine line between being a tough hurdle and then putting something on you that is just not, it's undoable. And like, I'll just say 15% in 10 days. I'm kind of knowing, you might as well put 80% in 3 days. I mean, either one has zero chance of ever happening.
I don't think it is undoable.
Well, it's absolutely undoable. You can't do that.
Not if it's the kind of issue that is, that hot button that you need to overturn what the town council has done.
But you're gonna get people.
Yeah.
They're gonna be pissed off. They're gonna go get forms. They're gonna find people to go and organize it all, and get them out there. I mean, that's even the best of us. I would think that's gonna take a week.
Right, but we're talking about proposing a move to a representative form of government. In doing that, we are electing representatives to make these decisions, right? This is a last ditch, the public gets access to the brakes on the bus kind of thing that is not meant to be, frankly, we should not see this used, right? This is not a mechanism that is in here for any kind of normal day-to-day or month-to-month. This is for egregious situations that could not have been foreseen by us and needs to be difficult enough that it doesn't take the ability to govern out of the hands of those elected to do the governing.
And I guess I would just argue that 5% in 21 days is incredibly hard. And I think we're minimizing that, and I don't think we're recognizing how challenging 5% in that, and just again to get on the ballot, and then you're going to have to get people to show up to vote, because I'm assuming we're going to put a threshold in column J. So that's just to get a question on the ballot, not to overturn it, just to get the question on the ballot. And again, we talked about in the last one, we talked about the fact that the initiative petition could be something completely ridiculous. Town council can say no, reject it. And I'm not sure why we're making it so much harder than that, because the same argument that you just gave is for that. And we gave them, 45 days to get those signatures?
I think so. 45 days to get 10%. And then they had...
That's to go to a ballot for election.
That's the same as this. This is to go to a ballot. And that's why we're seeing this is so different than the last one.
Then it shouldn't be any lower, that's for sure. It should be the same.
Well, it is, if you're saying 5% and 40, or 10% in 45 days, and we have each the number of days, then why are we not gonna have the number of signatures? And that understandably is still, because again, the days piece right there is the part that's the real challenge, not the number of signatures, but the time frame that we're knocking it down to in 21 days is the part that makes that a lot more challenging.
I'm hearing you. My opinion is that it should be a hard threshold to get over, and I would prefer to see the 10% threshold. That's my opinion.
Right, because now you have to put the law on hold while you figure all this out.
Well, you have to do that either way, right? As soon as they pull the papers, you have to stop and put this on hold for 21 days.
Right, that's what I mean. But the initiative petition, there isn't a law in place. You want a law to go on the books.
But a law that, again, town council rejected, in most cases, probably.
Right, but if you have a law in place, people are operating under it. So it's different than if you don't have the law in place.
Yeah, in this case, Sandy, nothing comes.
No, I understand the 21 days, and I'm not disagreeing with the 21 days, but I'm saying if we're decreasing the number of days this significantly, which we have to do, obviously, then I don't think that the 10% is feasible when we initially said 10% in 45 days for the last one. We're making it twice as hard.
All right, but we know 7.5% is achievable in 3 weeks. We've done it.
I'm fine with that, but I just don't see 10 as reasonable.
Is 7.5 a good compromise for everybody?
I guess it depends on what J is going to be. All of these are interdependent.
They are.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so roughly 1,000 signatures in 21 days, 3 weeks. Goes to a ballot. Thresholds range from anywhere from 0 to 25% on the high end.
25%.
25%.
Anybody feel strongly on the other end?
I definitely don't think 25%. I'd say 15 to 20.
I'm okay with 20. If it's going to be a hot topic, then people are going to come out. We have to be thinking of like override type issues or override type level of interest.
Right, but we're talking, we usually get 30% for override type issues.
Again, I think that override's sort of in its own category. It affects people's, pockets. So that's not the same as you don't get that turnout any other time.
I don't think 20% is unreasonable.
We got that kind of turnout for Condyne.
What do we get for Condyne?
I don't remember what was one of our highest meetings for sure. I remember when I sent the percentages for the meeting participation early on in the process. That was definitely one of the highest participated meetings.
I guess these are just votes, so you're just going to go to a ballot. So, it's not like going to a meeting, like a Condyne meeting. You have to sit there for 2 hours and talk about the zoning laws. You're in and out.
Yes, and you're going to have probably a good 10 to 12 hours available
Yeah,
to
so I
do so.
mean, the effort is not all that great, I guess, versus conduct meeting.
Correct.
Denise, do you remember the number on that? Because I don't think it was above 2,000, was it?
I can try to look it up.
Okay.
But the cost is extensive.
Do you remember the date of the Condyne meeting?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I can find your data, I just don't know what date it was.
You have to assume the Condyne meeting, I mean, they couldn't possibly be more than 1,000 people there. I mean, I don't think we can even hold 1,000 people.
That gymnasium was overflowing. People were sitting on the floor, standing in the hall. Yeah, it was chock. Yeah. Yep.
It was well attended. I don't remember what the number was.
It's can't picture 1,000 people there. I think the fire chief be freaking out.
There was a lot.
But 1,000 is only that's less. I mean, it's 1,200 is 10%.
I'm wondering, is it in the box, in the whatever share box thing there?
I don't know. Hang on. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to go on my thumb drive. I know where it is.
It was 1,000 people. I just looked it up.
So there you go.
I mean, to have been 10%, you would have 2,500 people there. So,
how many people, Sandy, did you say? 1,000?
1,000, yeah.
So that's 8%.
8%.
I think 20 is reasonable.
I agree with the 20. I feel good about the percentage of petition signatures, so I'm not gonna fight over the 20 this time, but I prefer 20.
Anyone want to put in an argument for higher or lower? Should I type?
See what it looks like.
It's 2,500 people. Give or take a couple. I don't hear anybody, so I'm going to assume we're okay at 20%.
Laura, what does column I mean under outcome? Is that referring to the petition?
Yeah, so what happens if they reach that number of signatures?
And it says if not rescinded, meaning
By town council.
all the actions not rescinded. Oh,
yeah. So in some cases, this is just very high level. So in some cases, it said town council will immediately hold a meeting. And in some cases, it just says, town council will review once it's presented or the number of signatures of the petition is certified.
Right.
We'll review it once it's deemed lawful. They could choose to rescind it. And if they don't want to, then it goes to a town vote.
Right. Yeah, I guess that was the original. Okay, that's cool. I guess that's what I was kind of going back to initially. Is that, if they just misread the town, they may want to just rescind it.
Yes, they have the option to, except in Franklin, where it just immediately goes to a town vote. At least here, we're giving them the option to reverse course.
So that to me is the other side of a referendum. I agree in most cases, we don't want to be able to overturn everything that the town council votes on. But sometimes they just might not have got it right. It creates such an uproar.
Yeah.
The loudest voices don't necessarily represent the majority, though. You're just talking about people who make a lot of noise.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, but if somebody's gonna start a petition, though, that's gonna get around quickly. That's gonna be, that's gonna get back to town council. The town clerk will let them know almost immediately.
With new Ortho Home Defense Max.
Sure.
Okay, is everybody happy here? I've obviously got to go back to school committee and get their position on this, but. Okay, it is 9:45. I'm fading. I don't know about anybody else. If people want to push on, I'm happy to keep going. If not, we can move the rest of this off to next meeting.
I've been looking at Zoom for 14 hours today, so I, for one, would be okay.
All right.
Move to adjourn.
Moving on.
Hang 1 second. I got an email from Lauren Goldberg while we were in the meeting, and it's actually just addressing Kerry's question from last week. Is Kerry still on here?
Yes.
Okay.
I am.
So the question was posed, had to do with recall and whether or not the person being recalled could be excluded from the recall ballot. And Lauren had indicated that they had a constitutional right to be on that ballot, but our charter specifically precludes them from being a candidate for election on a ballot in which they're being potentially recalled from. So posed the question to Lauren. She came back and said, this is for Carrie, Article 9 of the Massachusetts Constitution provides as follows: all elections ought to be free, and all inhabitants of this Commonwealth having such qualifications as they establish by their frame of government have an equal right to elect officers and be elected for public employment. She goes on, so that's the Constitution. She said that language makes clear that persons have an equal right to be elected. At the time of the recall election, the individual has not been recalled, and therefore they have an equal right to be elected as would any other person.
We'll have to agree to disagree on the legal interpretation of that.
Okay.
Honestly, because I was looking for case law that analyzed that section, and I just didn't see it in relation to those qualifications. Because the way I look at it is a qualification is that you're not on the ballot to be recalled. We have qualifications for all sorts of things, so including who can vote, and so anyway, I was wondering if there was something more than that provision.
Sorry. I will pass that along so everybody has it, though. Okay, so I think we've probably reached our maximum capacity for this evening. Looking at the agenda, I think we're all set. Our next meeting we've decided is going to be May 18th. We've reviewed the minutes. We're good. So I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Sorry, Dave.
We need seconds. And I think Lauren said we don't need to vote. Roll call for adjournment, correct?
Okay.
So we're adjourned. It's unanimous.
All right.
Good night.
Nice to see you all.
Good night, everybody.
Right.
I took a lot of notes of the meeting tonight. It was awesome.
Great. Thanks, Peter.
And now I'm getting ready to do my newscast first, and then going to do my COVID-19 briefing, and hopefully we can get back to normal either May or June, everyone.
Excellent. Thank you, Peter. Have a good night.
That's right. Good night, everybody. Good night,
Good night,
Jane.
Peter.
Good night, Jane.
Night, guys.
Good night,
All right.
everyone. Janie. Good night.
Good night, Peter. Night, everybody.
Janie.
All right. I stopped recording. We're done.